Yashodanandana Vrataranjana
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Rayanam namaskritya naram shaiva narotamam devim sarasvatim vyasam tato jaya buddhirayat nastapareshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavata sevaya bhagavati uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naishtaki. Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 5, entitled Vidura's Talks with Maitreya. Text 12. Is that correct? Or it's 11? 11, right. No. What's today? It's 12, isn't it? Okay, let's see what it says here.
11 says 12. It was 11 yesterday, at least it should have been.
Right.
Well, because we didn't do any class on 12 months. Yeah, that's why it was 10 yesterday.
Huh?
Before the thing is kind of messed up. Maybe we can do both 11 and 12, is that too much?
Okay, so I should do 11 then, huh? All right, we'll do verse 11. Kas. Huh? 11, yeah? Tripnuyat, Tirtha, Pado, Bidhanat, Satreshu, Va, Suribir, Idyamanat, Ya, Karna, Nadim, Purushasya, Yato, Bava, Radam, Yeha, Ratim, Chinati, Kastripnuyat tirtha pado bidhanat.
Kastripnuyatirthapado vidhanat.
Satreshu vasuribir idyamanat.
Satreshu vasurivi.
Yakarna nadim purushasya yato. Bhava pradam geharatim chinati. Kastripnuyat tirtha pado bidhanat. Satreshu vasuribir idyamanat. Yakarna nadim purushasya yato. Bhava pradam geharatim chinati. Kastripnuyat tirtha pado bidhanat. Satleshu vasuribir idyamanat. Yakarna nadim purushasya yato. Bhava padam geharatim chinati.
Kastripnuyati tapado vidana. Satreshu vasurivyamana. Yakarnanadim purushasya yato. Kastripnuyati tapado vidana. Satreshu vasurivyamana. Yakarnanadim purushasya yato. Bhava pradam viharatim chinatti. Kastripnuyati tapado vidana. Satreshu vasurivyamana. Yakarnanadim purushasya yato. Bhava pradam viharatim chinatti.
Mataji.
Kastripnuyati tapado vidana. Satreshu vasurivyamana. Yakarnanadim purushasya yato. Bhava pradam viharatim chinatti.
Ka. Who is that man? Tripnuyat. That can be satisfied. Tirthapada. Whose lotus feet are all the places of pilgrimage. Bidhanat. From the talks of. Satreshu. In human society. Va. One who is. Suribi. By great devotees. Idyamanat. One who is so worshipped. Ya. Who? Karna Nadim. In the holes of the ears. Purushasya. Of a man. Yata. Entering. Bhava pradam. That which awards births and deaths. Geharatim. Family affection. Chinati. Is cut off. Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees. Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Purport by His Divine Grace, ISKCON's founder, Acharya Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Krishna Katha is so powerful that simply by entering into a person's ear, it can at once give deliverance from the bondage of family affection. Family affection is an illusory manifestation of the external energy, and it is the only impetus for all mundane activities. As long as there is mundane activity and the mind is absorbed in such engagement, one has to undergo the repetition of birth and death in the current material nescience. People are most influenced by the mode of ignorance, and some are influenced by the passionate mode of material nature, and under the spell of these two modes, a living entity, living being, is actuated by the material conception of life. The mundane qualities do not allow a living entity to understand his real position. The qualities of both ignorance and passion strongly bind one to the illusory bodily conception of the self. The best among the fools, who are thus deluded, are those who engage in altruistic activities under the spell of the material mode of passion. Bhagavad-Gita, which is direct Krishna Katha, gives humanity the elementary lesson that the body is perishable and that the consciousness which is spread throughout the body is imperishable. The conscious being, the imperishable self, is eternally existent and cannot be killed under any circumstances, even after the dissolution of the body. Anyone who misunderstands this perishable body to be the self and who works for it in the name of sociology, politics, philanthropy, altruism, nationalism, or internationalism, under the false plea of the bodily conception of life, is certainly a fool and does not know the implications of reality and unreality. Some of them are above the modes of ignorance and passion and are situated in the mode of goodness, but mundane goodness is always contaminated by tinges of ignorance and passion. Mundane goodness can enlighten one that the body and the self are different, and one in goodness is concerned with the self and not the body. But due to being contaminated, those in mundane goodness cannot understand the real nature of the self as a person. Their impersonal conception of the self as distinct from the body keeps them in the mode of goodness within material nature, and unless they are attracted by Krishna Katha, they will never be liberated from the bondage of material existence. Krishna Katha is the only remedy for all people of the world because it can situate one in pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from material bondage. To preach Krishna Katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, is the greatest missionary activity, and all sensible men and women of the world may join in this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya. So I know it's a difficult task, but as far as possible, try to make your cutting so that it doesn't make a sharp sound when it comes down to the cutting board. Thank you. Om Jnana Timirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurlamitam Jena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Kada Mayam Tadati Svapadanti Kam Mandeham Shri Guru Shri Uta Padakamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatan Vidam Dam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Itamscha Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dina Bandho Jagatpate Gopisha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Debyad Bindaranya Kalpajumada Srimad Ratnagara Sringhasanasto Srimad Radha Srila Govinda Devo Prestalabi Savyamano Smarami Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Brindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vancha Kalpajrubhyascha Kripasinubhyeva Cha Patitanam Bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gora Bhakta Brinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare Kastripnuya Tirtha Padobidanat Satreshu Vasurabir Idyamanat Yakarna Nadim Purushasya Yato Bhavapadam Geha Ratim Chinati. Who in human society can be satisfied with hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage, and who is worshipped by great sages and devotees? Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. So this is Vidura propitiating, glorifying, greatly respecting Maitreya, who was given the good fortune to be present for Lord Krishna's final instructions to Uddhava. And understanding the Lord understanding the greatness of Vidura. We all know that he was formerly Yamaraj. Prabhupada says such a position to judge the living entities who are non-devotees after their death. Certainly, one must be one of the most confidential associates of the Lord, or particularly Yamaraj is expected to be very expert in judicial matters. And indeed, he became Vidura because of a very reasonable protest that, in a particular case, his judification was too severe, cursing Mandakya Muni due to his childhood profligacy, piercing an ant with a lance, that you should, in your full adult life, and as a self-realized soul, be caught up, be swept up in a police raid with a bunch of dacoits and thieves, and, and only at the last minute when the king heard about this, he said, stop it at once. He said, what kind of what kind of judgment is this? This is not very intelligent. Become a Sudra who doesn't have much intelligence. So by social position, he was born in the kept wife. That's the term that Prabhupada uses in those days, that the high-class Kshatriyas, the princess would marry the high-class Kshatriya, and she would become queen of that Kshatriya's ruling place, and all of her servants would come with her, and the king would give those female servants wives also. So that was Vidura's position. But he didn't have the mentality of a Sudra. He was a very great learned personality, so much so that he could give instructions to a very grossly attached person, Dhritarashtra, and it wasn't possible to raise him to the stage of a Narottam in the first canto, it's described, which is the topmost Paramahamsa human being, but at least raised him to the stage of a Dhira, where he was able to achieve liberation. So Maitreya was left with instructions, and Vidura is here propitiating. There's many places in the Bhagavatam where great devotees are extolling and inspiring other great devotees to speak. Most notably, throughout the Bhagavatam, Maharaj Parikshit inspiring Sukadeva Goswami. Sukadeva Goswami was known not to stay more than the time for milking a cow at a householder's house. He was there and he was gone. He wasn't going to get embroiled in politics and he said and she said and I like and you don't like and this one is this way and that one is that way. No interest whatsoever, only on the transcendental platform. So, yet he could understand the caliber of Maharaj Parikshit, and more than that, the Lord's plan that the great book incarnation of the Lord, the Srimad Bhagavatam, would be revealed to the world through this incident. On our Upper West Side 72nd Street tour, we showed devotees 100 West 72nd Street, and in Prabhupada's solitary apartment through the winter of 1965 and 1966, we have it on the Bhajan series. Prabhupada recorded many of his solitary bhajans there. He recorded the introduction to the Bhagavad-Gita there in that place. And Sukadeva Goswami's invocation prayers to Srimad Bhagavatam, the 4th chapter of the 2nd canto, which was inspired by Maharaj Parikshit's pure desire to hear Krishna Katha, was recorded there also. Later, this is chapter 5, in the 7th chapter, after Vidura had heard preliminary or beginning from Maitreya, he praises, which is similar in a series of verses, which has a similar connection to what we were hearing today. Both are the lowest of fools, and one who is transcendental to all intelligence enjoys happiness, whereas persons between the two suffer the material pangs. So either you're a Paramahamsa or you're a completely in the mode of ignorance and oblivious. Of course, we know that's a very bad position to be in. And Prabhupada categorizes the lowest of fools. The hog's life is degraded in every respect in standard of happiness, which entails living in a filthy place, engaging in sex enjoyment at every opportune moment, indiscriminate mother, sister, daughter, and laboring hard in a struggle for existence, but this is unknown to the hog. Similarly, human beings who are unaware of the miseries of material existence and are happy in sex, life, and hard labor are the lowest of fools. Yet because they have no sense of miseries, they supposedly enjoy so-called happiness. The other class of men, those who are liberated and are situated in the transcendental position above intelligence, are really happy and are called Paramahamsas. But persons who are neither like hogs and dogs, nor on the level of Paramahamsas, feel the material pangs, and for them, inquiry about the absolute truth is necessary. My dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance. That is the result of hearing from the self-realized person. Devotees who were present in August of 1973 at the Bhaktivedanta Manor, where Srila Prabhupada installed Sri Sri Radha Gokulananda. I'm trying to remember what Pandal in India they presided over, but I don't want to speculate. And that it corresponded to Janmashtami. So Prabhupada is giving a Janmashtami lecture and a deity installation lecture all at the same time. In Of course, Berry Place, such a small building, was a great triumph. His beloved Guru Maharaj wanted a center in London. He spent the lifeblood funds of the Gaudiya Math to send some of his leading devotees there. They couldn't accomplish very substantial. And Prabhupada accomplished, with his American and European disciples, great triumph, and now this great mansion. To one reporter, do you people work? No, we don't work. Why do we have to work? We're sons of the richest father. You have to work. If you were to acquire this building, Bhaktivedanta Manor, how would you be able to work your whole life at your present rate of salary and get this building? No. But we were just handed this building for free. So the devotees that Prabhupada was just opening the door to Goloka Vrindavan in this lecture, and it was so potent and powerful. So that's what's being described here. There's one place, maybe we'll find it, where he's saying, I'm perfect, I'm entering into your words, just like we say, we take Narottam Das Thakur's prayer as our own. Make the words of one's spiritual master one with one's heart. I do not want the desire for anything else or any other words to remain within my heart. Love for the feet, which means simultaneously the order of the spiritual master, is one of my life and soul, and it raises me to the highest position. And here, this beautiful verse by Vidura. By serving the feet of the spiritual master, one is enabled to develop transcendental ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead, who is the unchangeable enemy of the Madhu demon, and whose service, the service of Krishna, the slayer of the Madhu demon, vanquishes one's material distress. So we're hearing here today in this verse that by hearing the Katha, Krishna Katha, spoken by the self-realized Paramahamsa, such topics cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Tyaktvateham punarja, what is verse 4 of Sad Goswami Astakam? Tyakva Turnamaseisham Mandalapati Shrenim Sadhu Tujavat Putvadina Ganesha Ko Karunaya Kopina Kansta Shrito Gopi Bhava Rasaratam Dilahari Kalola Magno Mohor Vande Rupa Sanatano Rago Yago Sri Jiva Gopalako. They kicked off the association, not just ordinary society, friendship, and love, but the highest level. You see, people in like the higher echelons, how attached they are. Maybe try to distribute books to such people. There's so much, I use the word asphyxiated, suffocated in their own false conception of their self-importance, that, practically speaking. Sometimes you see those in that position, they realize that this is just a drag, this is just a burden. I just want to be an ordinary person and be able to walk down the street like everybody else. But people are just lumping all this fame and recognition on me, which I don't want and I don't deserve and I don't need. Such persons like George Harrison, for example. So this is necessary if one wants to be recognized as a devotee of the Lord, to broaden not just the immediate family, my kith and kin, my blood relatives, but the entire world is my family. And what to speak of human beings? Prabhupada speaking at the Franciscan Seminary in Melbourne, Australia in 1974. St. Francis would address, the different animals and plants and other living entities as his brother and sisters. What does your divine grace think about this? Oh, this is first-class God consciousness. This is real God consciousness. all of these, everyone there was moved to tears, and Prabhupada recognized he hadn't heard specifically per se about St. Francis, or understood as much as us Westerners might, the glory of St. Francis, who lived in the 1200s, I believe. But when understanding what his doctrine was, what his outlook was, he affirmed this to be the real thing. So why do we give up family affection? What is that necessary? Affection is not to be killed, it is to be transferred to affection to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. That's what we're glorifying. And Krishna is giving us this opportunity during this month of Damodar to approach him in his most intimate feature. What does it say in the Nectar Devotion? Krishna is rarely inclined to give pure devotional service because it means he has to give himself. And he's certainly not inclined to give it to unserious persons. But those who perform devotional service during the month of Kartik and in the jurisdiction of Mathura, we can take stock in that because it's described here, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage. The Lord's lotus feet means pure devotional service. And anywhere one resides outside of the Holy Dham, the only real reason to reside in any place outside of the Holy Dhams is to preach and distribute pure devotional service. And that is not only counted as equal, but in many cases better than residing in the Holy Dham. Better in the sense that what is the Lord's order for you? What does he want? A good discipline we should practice throughout our life. Instead of asking, what do I want to do? What does the Lord want me to do? That will make your life much more easy and smoother in all circumstances. What does Krishna say in the Bhagavad-Gita? One in this consciousness will not be shaken, even in the greatest calamity. And here's the answer. The association of a bona fide spiritual master like the sage Maitreya can be of absolute help in achieving transcendental attachment for the direct service of the Lord. So developing ecstasy in the service of the personality of Godhead. The word rati rasa is significant in this verse. Service to the Lord is rendered in different transcendental mellows, relationships, neutral, active, friendly, parental, and nuptial. A living entity in the liberated position is transcendental service to the Lord becomes attached to one of the above-mentioned mellows. And when one is engaged in transcendental loving service to the Lord, one's service attachment in the material world is automatically vanquished. And the Bhagavad-Gita verse, which we're all taught as young bhaktas and bhaktins, 259, param dristva nivartante. By developing a higher taste, one automatically gives up the lower taste. My dear sir, I am obliged to you because now I can understand that this material manifestation is without substance, although it appears real. I am confident that by serving your feet, it will be possible for me to give up the false idea. So many places, Hare Nam, there is no other way, there is no other way. Only Bhakti-mam abhijananti yavanyas-chasmi tattva, only by devotional service. This should add to our urgency. When we go out the door to act upon the order of Lord Chaitanya and Srila Prabhupada, we should understand that we have really the only solution to everyone's problems. And we should be very humble about it, not like the so-called self-professed born-again Christian. Jesus is the only way to the truth and light. They have material motivation and they're grossly on the bodily conception of life, so they're not authorized preachers of the Lord, and what to speak of Jesus Christ. We pity them. But on the higher level, that conviction is most authorized, and we are warranted to have that understanding because that is the version of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But unlike the materially motivated and passionate and ignorant guided so-called born-again Christians or other religions too, we are very broad-minded and we understand that devotional service and connection to the Lord can be, that connection can be made by our ardent, transcendental communion and commitment and connection by the process of Guru Parampara to understand how to help people according to their particular modes of material nature. You hear the memories of the disciples of Srila Prabhupada, very practically, well, I won't say practical, I'll say a universal realization all the disciples have is that Prabhupada saw me for who I really was. What was her name? She was one of the first female disciples in the first group of devotees in coming to India with Srila Prabhupada. Not Yamuna. I think Dina, not Dina Tarani, but anyway, so she said, it was clear that, no, this was Praful Mukhi, who was at the time the wife of Gaurhari, Praful Mukhi Devi Dasi, that it's very clear that before meeting that Prabhupada was the only one I ever met in this world who really loved me. So you can see who for what we are and can apply the process, the prescribed medicine, how we should live our life so that we can come to that stage and come out of whatever material conditioning that we're in. Persons whose austerity is meager can hardly obtain the service of the pure devotees who are progressing on the path back to the kingdom of Godhead, the Vaikunthas. Pure devotees engage 100% in glorifying the Supreme Lord, who is the Lord of the demigods and the controller of all living entities. So what's described here in today's verse is that persons so much absorbed in the modes of passion and ignorance, they've killed their internal vision, and only if the devotees of the Lord take pity on them and have mercy on them can they be saved. Otherwise, their lives are hopeless failures. Today's purport concludes with what was chosen as an excerpt in the last book published by the BBT before Prabhupada departed the planet, which Srila Prabhupada was able to see an advanced copy of, Preaching is the Essence. Krishna Katha is the only remedy for all people of the world because it can situate one in the pure consciousness of the self and liberate one from material bondage. To preach Krishna Katha all over the world, as recommended by Lord Chaitanya, is the greatest missionary activity. Everyone who is a good person, the question and desire in their mind and heart will automatically arise, how can I help people or animals or help the world? So the greatest missionary activity is to spread Krishna Katha, Krishna consciousness all over the world. And all, so we say good persons, and Prabhupada gives a synonym to a good person, sensible men and women of the world may join this great movement started by Lord Chaitanya. Similarly, in the 6th canto, when the demigods, who were motivated, not purely, they were Sakama Bhaktas, go to Dadichi Muni and beg his bones to make the, was it the Narayan Kavacha? The thunderbolt that they killed Vritasura. Just see, when you don't understand what is the ultimate, they didn't even Indra, and my dear sir, although you were a heinous, abominable demon, you were speaking like a Mahabhagavat. How can you acquire such consciousness? Greatly perplexed. The mantra was chanted wrong, not, Britasura, the demon, the enemy of Indra, but Britasura, of whom Indra is the enemy. That means that Indra is going to have the upper hand and he's going to win. Go ahead, kill me, and then I can go back and serve the lotus feet of Lord Sankarshan. So, he's toyed with the demigods a little bit. Don't you know the pain that comes by giving up the body? You know what you're asking? He ultimately, all right, you can take my bones. So Prabhupada brings it on home, just like he does here, that similarly, the world is overcome by a godless conception of life, and many, here we're hearing sensible, but in the 6th canto, Prabhupada says, great men and women of this world are invited to come forward and sacrifice their lives for the most noble cause of the re-spiritualization of human society. This 3rd canto, Prabhupada was translating in 1968 when he was seeing his Krishna consciousness movement beginning to expand very, very greatly. So everywhere throughout Prabhupada's books, but we can say there are many beautiful gems that are in these beginning of the 3rd canto here. In the Bhagavad-Gita, the devotees of the Lord are more kind than the Lord because they understand the inner purpose of the Lord. Therefore, they take all types of risks in approaching the fallen conditioned souls to engage them in the acts of Krishna consciousness, which are absolutely necessary for the human beings. It's described here that even though those in the modes of passion and ignorance commit unlimited offenses to the Lord and the devotees do not take offense but continue to bestow the gift of pure devotion upon such offenders without hesitation. O Lord, great philanthropic souls travel on the earth on behalf of the Supreme Personality of Godhead to show compassion to the fallen souls who are averse to the sense of subordination to the Lord. No one has anything to do but to render devotional service to the Supreme Lord. Just remember that. And when you go outside the door and you see people doing everything under the sun, it's actually very limited the things that people can do, on the bodily conception of life. It's very hackneyed and, so especially here in New York City, New Yorkers are famous for being able to ignore anything and everything outrageous because they've been there, seen it, and done it a million times. So, any activity other than the trance of the loving service to the Lord is more or less a rebellious action against the supreme will. All fruitive activity, empiric philosophy, and mysticism are more or less against the sense of subordination to the Lord, and any living entity engaged in such rebellious activity is more or less condemned by the laws of nature. Great unalloyed devotees of the Lord are compassionate towards the fallen, and therefore they travel all over the world with a mission of bringing souls back to Godhead, back to home. Such pure devotees of the Lord carry the message of Godhead in order to deliver the fallen souls, and therefore the common man who is bewildered by the influence of the external energy of the Lord should avail himself of their association. Hare Krishna. Who in human society can be satisfied without hearing sufficient talk of the Lord, whose lotus feet are the sum total of all places of pilgrimage? and was worshipped by great sages and devotees. Such topics can cut off one's bondage to family affection simply by entering the holes of one's ears. Hare Krishna. Any question or comment?
It's on, it's just the bottom. The second one. So I was thinking about the third verse of the Swami Astakam.
3,
Yeah,
you know,
Govinda Dhanam Mitra. So there's
pouring upon them transcendental talks about Govinda.
Yeah, so the songs in translation says the songs of Govinda song. You know, I was just reflecting how, you know, every day Harinam was going out and chanting the holy names of Govinda, holy names of Krishna. And we hear how this is removing the sinful activities of people with this by coming in contact with the Harinam. But it seems like even after years and years and years of doing that, it seems like so many people remain inimical, or you know they don't become devotees. So how can we understand?
You have to become more broad-minded to see what's happening. It's described that a rising tide raises all boats in the harbor. Even, you know, the ocean goes up 1 millimeter. That does huge. And, you know, we're looking at it from our point of view in our minuscule lifespan. This is a great effort that spans multi-generations and hundreds and thousands of years. One thing that's universally recognized is that just from the time of Prabhupada's appearance till now, I have a memory of that because I grew up in the 60s and 70s, that yoga and vegetarianism and turning to understanding natural medicines and health and so many other things, that is not only in vogue or popular, but it's become like mainstream practically speaking. Before the sun even before the sun makes its first appearance over the horizon, there's light. And what to speak of when the sun rises, and what to speak of when the sun hits the noonday mark and heats up the entire world. So apply the 3 favorable procedures to devotional service, and that will help you to understand and see and not fall prey to such defeatist mentality. Enthusiasm, confidence, and patience. And rest assured, you'll see in your own lifetime, you're a relatively young man. What have you seen? Not very much, but you'll see very great changes. And especially what's happening now, all senior devotees, learned devotees understand that this is what's going on is part of the Lord's plan to usher in the golden age. And on a personal level, Srila Prabhupada was predicted. Actually, he was predicted when Narada Muni spoke. On the other hand, that literature, which is full of the name, fame, form, and descriptions of the personality of Godhead, is a different creation meant to bring about a revolution in the lives of this world's misdirected civilization. 5,000 years ago, what to speak of 500 years ago, a Senapata Bhakta and commander-in-chief will appear. So Srila Prabhupada worked so hard, and he established temples and deities and devotees all over the world. And just in 44 years since Prabhupada's departure, how much ISKCON has exponentially advanced. Transcendental books. Oh, we've given out so many books. One lady who was like a hippie in the 1970s got a Krishna book, put it on her shelf, left it there. Maybe 10 years later, had a son. That son became 30 years old. Mom, I'd like to read a book about God. Oh, there's a book. Gave her the Krishna book. He became an initiated devotee and disciple in this movement. Time bombs. We want our sense gratification. I want it now. I want to see the results. There's no results. It must not work. Let's think of something else to do. Be thou happy by this yajna, because by its performance, all desirable things will be bestowed. You'll get your bhukti, you'll get your comfortable living, you'll get your mukti, you'll get your liberation at the time of death, but you'll get the prema martha mohan, you'll get the ultimate necessity, which is love of Godhead. Just try to develop love of Godhead, and that will solve all contending problems. It's kind of like, I want to be, all right, we want to get the credit, because you fight the battle and get the credit, but what, you're so greedy, you want all the credit? You've got to leave some devotional service for the subsequent generations of devotees. Our service is not done until everybody becomes a pure devotee. Raya, he brought up, Prabhupada's disciple, he brought up this kind of quandary, it happens automatically by the Lord's will, free will, destiny. It's predicted, Srila Prabhupada, that in the age of Kali, like a certain percentage of the population will become Krishna conscious. So why even try? Or what's the point of trying? And Prabhupada, a ridiculous question, Prabhupada just stopped, was on a walk, turned around, planted his cane, but if you preach, why not 100%? Such analyzations, could lead to, I've seen devotees think like that and then they leave devotional service. Let me do something else that I can see a result in my hand. I've seen it time and time again. So look under the surface, see the artesian well, which is bubbling very greatly. That would be my answer to that question. So it's after 9 o'clock and we'll stop. Thank you very much. Shri Shri Radha Govinda ki jai, Grantaraj Srimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol.
These guys, Rama Raya.